Welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I want to talk today about hiding. Um, it sounds simple, but I really was getting completely absorbed in this idea of hiding today. What it started out in my meeting, one of the stories was talking about all the places we hide our alcohol. And of course that resonated with me. I hid my alcohol everywhere in the end. I I found my favorite hiding place to be in my knee-high boots because I could store those little wine boxes inside my knee-high boots. Stack them up, the higher the boot, the more I could fit in there. And I actually changed the type of, wine I was getting so that I could fit it in my hiding places better. It was harder to hide a big box of wine than it was to hide these little boxes. So, but as I was thinking about this, I started thinking about I wasn't just hiding my alcohol containers. I was hiding that I was drinking. I was hiding my feelings about drinking. I was hiding my obsession with drinking. I was hiding all my unpleasant feelings. I was hiding what I was doing when I was drinking. I was hiding my behaviors. And eventually I was hiding my physically hiding, isolating. So I wanted to share in this episode about my experiences as I moved from hiding to healing. So throughout my life, as I was thinking back, I've really had an automatic reaction throughout my life to hide unpleasant feelings. And this tendency to do that, I remember feeling that way as a child, not really feeling like, if I felt something that I thought, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, that I wouldn't ask anybody, I wouldn't talk about it. I did have a best friend that we talked about stuff, but we didn't talk about everything. And of course, we weren't going to talk about these things that I didn't bring up. But as life happened, that never stopped. I had lots of really, really close friends over the years, but there were certain things that it seems like I did not talk about that I think eventually I would drink over. I would cover up, I should say. I was hiding that stuff eventually because I found that in my active alcoholism, I could hide those emotions. I could pour alcohol over them. I could make them not feel so much, not be so intense. Um, I could not tell anybody about how much I was obsessing about alcohol. And then I could hide my behaviors as long as I didn't tell anybody and nobody found out. Hiding really became a way of life for me. I mean, at the end of my alcoholism, um, I was hiding everything from everyone. I really was not honest about anything with anyone. I was a completely closed book. And I didn't realize that until I got sober. Um, Hiding allowed me to do whatever I wanted without facing any consequences. And I could keep all of the unpleasantness that was happening in my life under my skin, uh, out of sight from anyone. Nobody would ever know. And it was eating me up inside. This is why I believe this anxiety that I had got to this, or that I have, but it really got to this unmanageable state. It got to the point where I couldn't hide it anymore. I was just starting to shake, and that was not just the anxiety, of course. It was also withdrawal from alcohol, because this habit of concealing my alcohol became almost like the obsession. It seems like it extended to every part of my life until it became every moment of my life. And I hid my true feelings about most everything, my emotions. I was isolating myself, and I was really shutting down from having any chance to make any genuine connections. Um, Hiding led me to make decisions that were far from the next right thing. I didn't even know this concept about the next right thing. Instead, I did like the next wrong thing for sure. And I adjusted my life in order to make it easier to hide everything. This behavior, like I said, resulted in me hiding physically, but I feel like in a way I was hiding from myself too. Um, I was really trying to hollow myself out. I didn't want any of that stuff that was on the inside of me because it was too painful. Um, I got to the point that I was drinking so much that I really didn't remember a lot of what I was doing, and effectively hiding my behavior from others and hiding my behavior from my own memory. And unfortunately, and this is one of those regrets that I'm trying to work through, that it led me to lost years. I have a lot of years that are a blur to me. Um, I have fragmented memories. Um, there are things that my husband will say, will tell me that we did, or places we went, and I have no recollection of that. And that makes me sad. And I'm sure it makes him sad too, because who was he with if he wasn't with me? If I wasn't present, who was present? What Rachel was there? Rachel version 1.0, who was that? This was all because I was just trying to escape from the unpleasant truths of my life as they just continued to multiply. Um, the more I hid, the more unpleasant things were, the more I had to hide. When I was in the throes of alcoholism, it was impossible for me to imagine getting better. Impossible. And I chose that word very carefully tonight. It wasn't like it was going to be really hard. I could not imagine that life was ever going to be different than what it was. I was sure that that was the way that my life was going to be. And um, I feel sorry for that version of me, that didn't know, that was so naive and so sick. I don't know that she was naive. She was very sick. And the idea of facing my feelings and my behaviors and my actions was so terrifying that my body was just incapacitated with fear and anxiety. Um, it felt like there was no way out. It felt like somebody had locked me in a dungeon. It felt like I locked myself in a dungeon and somehow gave the key to somebody else and turned out the lights, and there was never going to be a way out. And the turning point for me came when I realized that the one thing I'm not going to be able to hide from is death, that it was going to come, that I was killing myself. That constant effort to conceal myself, my true self, like what was going on the inside, became debilitating, exhausting, isolating. It took a toll on my relationships. My health was shutting down. I've talked about in the past about the effects to my liver, my anxiety level, my depression, my overall well-being, my skin, my weight loss, everything. Now that I look back and I look at pictures, I have this driver's license that I got taken after I got sober, and I have a driver's license from before I got sober, and I cannot let go of those because the difference in my face is just like I was a very, very sick person. You can see it in the driver's license. And then the sober driver's license is just, I look super healthy. You know, I have color in my skin, I have meat in my cheeks, and probably more meat than I have right now, but that's another story. But yeah, I realized somehow towards the end of my drinking, in the end of my drinking, that if I continued to go down that path, I was going to die. And I can't tell you that I really saw that I was going to lose everything that mattered to me. You know, my boyfriend, my house, none of that struck me. I don't recall thinking that, but I do remember clearly coming to the realization that I was going to die if I kept doing what I was going to do. Even either I was going to overdose or or I was going to end up killing myself drinking and driving or something like that, or kill somebody else. And admitting this to myself was my first step. I didn't stop drinking. I wasn't like, I'm gonna die, and I threw out all my wine. That's not what happened for me. I had to take, you know, months, lots of conversations, starting the steps, going to meetings to start hearing in the big book, start hearing in the shares that, and then looking at myself and recognizing the extent of the hiding that I was doing. Um, and yeah, it started by recognizing the hiding of the alcohol bottles, but this represented so much more that I'm recognizing today, literally today, that I was hiding so much more. And the damage that it was causing was so much more than I realized at the time too. I I really just realized it was damaging my body and my well-being, but I didn't acknowledge the damage it was doing to everyone and everything around me. This was not an easy process, you know. It's simple but not easy. That's what they say when you enter the program. It requires a deep and, for a lot of people, painful look at our life choices. And, but it's necessary. It's really the beginning of moving from hiding to healing. And in recovery, I learned that the opposite of this hiding that I was doing is honesty and openness. And that took time. Um, I started by getting honest with myself. And it's hard to articulate what that looked like for me, but for as I recall, it was listening to the big book and listening to people share in the meetings. And the more people were able to get honest out loud in the meetings, I mean, I remember just time after time in the beginning going to these meetings and hearing people tell my story, you know, and me thinking, oh, I thought that was the only one, you know? Oh, they did that too. Like that's when I was able to start getting honest because I was not afraid. That opened the door. It cracked the door open when I heard people saying things that I felt. I heard people talking about how I felt. I heard people talking about behaviors that I did. Um, I heard people talking about their struggles, but they were also mine. And that honesty started super slow, super small, but it grew. And I built trust in myself. And I built trust in these people in the rooms that were talking and being honest about their journey as well. So it took as I started to realize this stuff and live, you know, I'm living it year after year. And it man, it takes a lot of consistency. But I have been willing because the alternative is to die. And that's there's no exaggeration about that. Either I get honest or I die, you know? I take the suggestions in the program or I die because that's what one more drink could do to me. It starts with one drink. I can't stop at one drink. And the people that I know that have gone back out, many of them went back out to have one drink and they never came back. And, you know, a friend of mine, 2.5 years ago, he died. He was just like me. I used to drink with him and he's gone and he's never coming back. And I know that would be me if I tried to do it again. So I have to be so honest with myself every day. I have to be honest about what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. There was something that I brought up to my husband tonight that I had hesitated to talk about because I didn't want to make it a big deal. Um, but I realized that it was sticking in my craw, as my old college roommate would say. It was stuck in my craw for a little too long, and I needed to talk about it or it wasn't going to go away. So I did. So I brought it up tonight and I said to him, you know, I was hesitant to bring this up because I didn't really want to make it a big deal. I know that it's going to work out on its own. And he said, no, you should always bring this up, because we can talk about it together. And so he's just great. I know. He's all mine. You can't have him. But it's just nice when we can talk about this stuff. And it starts, I believe, with listening, and then it continues with sharing, sharing our own truth and being honest about what we're thinking and the stuff that sticks in our craw. Um, Prayer and self-reflection have become essential tools in my process of being honest. Um, Doing the next right thing. Like that can be carried over to this too. I was making dinner and I was thinking about this thing. I was thinking about it a little too long. And I thought the next right thing is for me to say it out loud, you know? And that helps me break the cycle, that hamster wheel, the hamster that's running on the wheel in my head. The only way he's going to get off is if I open my mouth. That's how he comes out. The hamster, that sounds gross. The hamster jumps out through my mouth if he's running on the wheel. Um, Also through prayer. And you all know I've been talking about it a lot lately, which is really weird and unusual. But by practicing prayer and getting comfortable with it and figuring out how it works for me, how I want to do it, it's my way of I talked about it the other day, maybe even yesterday, expressing the willingness to change that train of thought, expressing the willingness to be honest about what's going on in my life. And that's the only way I'm going to seek guidance is if I open the gate, open the door. And that's when I start doing the action to change. Um, as I live each day striving to be honest and open, I'm not perfect at it. And I hide my emotions sometimes, not a lot anymore. Um, I'm seeing a psychiatrist for the purpose of not hiding anything right now because I was getting fearful that I was going to start closing up, start isolating again. And when I start feeling that coming, I know from past behaviors that I've got to do something about it. I've got to change, or nothing else is going to change. I have to face my fears. I have to face the stuff that's uncomfortable and work through it with the support of my recovery community, a psychiatrist, my family, friends, and taking that action and not letting myself sit on something for even a day. Um, it gives me such an incredible sense of belonging. It makes me feel like I'm not alone when I talk about these. It makes me feel not unique, which I talk about all the time, right? I'm not unique. And whenever I talk about it and I'm honest with another person, um, I'm reassured that despite whatever challenges I'm I'm experiencing, as I said yesterday, all is well when all is well within, right? Um, so I try to embrace honesty. I try to talk to my kids about embracing honesty, but we used to joke about it more than saying embrace honesty. We actually have a couple jokes about it. Let me tell you one. Story time. So when my kids were in, let's see, I think they were in middle school. Like my daughter may have been in fifth grade and my son was in eighth grade, something like that. But so I had this hourglass and it used to sit on the fireplace, on the mantle. And it was like a glass hourglass and inside had like white sand. And I loved this hourglass. And my kids knew that I love the hourglass. I don't know where I got it, like at Kohl's or something like that, but it was just pretty. I didn't buy a lot of things that were breakable because I had kids, you know? So I had this hourglass and it was up on the mantle. I'm like, it's not going to get broken up there. It's fine. Kids know not to throw a ball in the house, right? Wrong. Apparently, I don't know where I was. Maybe I was out mowing the lawn or, doing something. I wasn't there when whatever happened happened. But one day I was cleaning and I went up to the mantle and I looked at the hourglass and I turned it around and I was like, and there was a crack going all the way up the side of the hourglass. And I was like, oh my God, and I think I was still drinking then. So things didn't just fly, I couldn't just, I can't remember what you say, wipe them off my shoulders or whatever. I can't think of words right now. But I don't recall getting angry, but I asked the kids, like, what happened to the hourglass? And they both were like, I don't know. I didn't do it. And so I said, well, maybe because the sun was shining in right there, maybe it got too hot and it cracked. And they let me just believe that for years. And I kept the hourglass because it's not like I had a lot of money to, just throw it away and buy a new hourglass. So I kept it and I just had it turned so you couldn't see the crack. And I found out that my son broke the hourglass. They were throwing something in the house or something like that. And so I always prided myself. I told my husband, my boyfriend at the time, that my kids would never lie to me. And he was like, you're the most gullible person I've ever met. And I'm like, no, no, they don't lie to me. Well, then I found out that they actually did, of course, break the hourglass. And so I realized that I'm a sucker. So that's how we started the conversation about being honest. I thought that they were always honest with me, but now I'm like, who knows what they lie to me about at this point? They're like 22 and 26. So who knows how many lies they have? I'm kidding, kids. I don't think they listen to the podcast. But anyway, I try to be honest and I try to build genuine connections with others. And I think the most important person I can be honest with is myself. And it is so easy to lie to myself. I don't know if you have a problem with that. If you think about, like, even in the simplest ways, how do we lie to ourselves? When I feel something unpleasant, do I just stuff it in my dark place and just be like, it doesn't exist? Because that's lying to myself. My kids left today. They were here for my birthday, so they came for yesterday and today. Um, and yeah, I'm sad. I'm sad that they're gone, and I don't talk about that. And me not talking about it, I believe, is lying to myself. Um, I feel depressed when they leave, and things hurt a little more. Things make me sad a little more. And I'll give you an example. So they left today, and then I was cleaning up and I was putting things back. in this room in my office. I was putting things back where they were before they got here. And I grabbed my backpack that I used to carry my work computer in, and I used to go to work with it. And I grabbed my backpack and I got sad. I was like, oh, this is, and it reminded me of work. It reminded me of all the people at work. It reminded me of how, important I felt. And I got sad about work. And I realized immediately this isn't about work. It's because your kids were here and now they're gone. So I went and I put the backpack wherever I was going to put it. But if I didn't stop and look inward and think, what am I all of a sudden sad about work about? Because the reason why I realized that was because I haven't been sad about work for a little while. And so I was like, why am I sad all of a sudden? I'm picking up this backpack. Is it because I haven't touched this backpack in several months? That can't be it. This backpack cannot have this kind of impact on me. And I thought, yeah, it's because there's something else going on. And the backpack, the missing work, missing people, it's because I'm missing my kids. And so I don't have something to replace that, something to occupy me, which would be work. Um, so I started doing some, I picked up a hobby and started going through some fabric for my next hobby that I'm gonna work on. I got my sewing machine back out. So um, I really have to look inward and take time, take real time and face what is going on inside of me? What am I thinking in order to keep walking on the path to true healing? So moving from hiding to healing is challenging, right? It requires honesty, courage. It requires a commitment to change. I feel like a lot of this is very similar to yesterday. Facing our feelings, facing our behaviors, and breaking that cycle of of hiding or letting the sadness and the depression and the unhealthy feelings build on themselves. Um, Instead, grab a hold of a pause and sit in it and try to open yourself up during that time and and use that time to nurture a connection of yours. Talk to somebody about what it is that you might be hiding. um it almost doesn't even feel like hiding sometimes, but if you really just sit in silence and think about it, it is. It is. It's hiding from myself, really. So, this was good to think on today, and I appreciate you all joining me on today's Recovery Daily podcast episode. Um, Take some time to do some self-reflection today. And as things are going on throughout your day, like think about, am I being honest? You know, Eh, think about like in different bizarre times during the day, just stop and be like, am I being honest? And just see what happens. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you.